Welcome to the CIONET podcast. My name is Hendrik Dekkers. I'm here today with Rajat Dhawan, who is the Group Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Soho House. A very warm welcome, Raj.
Hendrik, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Raj, you've been with Soho House for 6 years now, and you're leading a very broad remit that spans from digital over data and AI, CRM, IT infrastructure, up to cybersecurity. And you have driven what you describe as a wholesale cultural transformation in a company that prized high-touch experiences, but initially had little digital or data capability. Raj, you've had a fascinating journey, and you were a management consultant at Accenture before, but you've been steering a deeply relational, hospitality-first brand into becoming a data-driven leader. So if you had to pick one defining thread that runs through this transformation, Raj, what would that be?
I'd say that the ability to combine commercial growth of the business with how data and insights can support that would be the one thing that I've driven throughout my journey. And that has truly helped the company grow effectively, improve our decision-making across the C-suite, but on the back of data.
Okay, super. And well, when you first started there, you faced a landscape with over 300 legacy systems, with fragmented teams, and with really data-devoid decision-making. Was there a specific moment early on that made you realize the sheer scale of the cultural and technological shift that was needed in this company?
Yes. So one of the advantages that we've had is that we are a founder-led culture. So the entrepreneurial spirit that runs through the company is fascinating, and it's really helped us grow. But with that growth also came some inefficiencies, because as we scaled from the UK into US, Europe, and Asia, we kind of grew less like a global company, but more like multiple small regional companies. And because of that, processes and systems did not grow very efficiently. And as a result of that, we did have a lot of systems, a lot of people. And as we thought of growing even further, one of the things I realized is that we need to change the operating model across the business, and definitely within digital, data, and technology.
Okay. Now let's start maybe with painting a little bit of a context. So can you tell us what really the business and maybe a bit of the history of Soho House? What is it that you do, and how big is the business?
So from my lens, the way I would describe Soho House is that it's a membership business. We've been in the business for 30 years. We started by our founder, Nick Jones, in Soho in 1995. It was a club that was started with for people in the creative industries and people with a creative soul. That grew based on our members' feedback, both from a regional perspective as well as with multiple businesses that we now have. We are a New York listed business. Our revenues are about 1.3 billion. And we've gone through a journey of initially being private to private equity backed to public. And we recently announced that we may go back to private again.
Okay. And so you have hundreds of thousands of members as customers. What is it really that they get as a service from Soho House?
Yeah, so we have about 200,000 members, and we have about 110,000 people on the wait list to become members. Yeah. So one of the things that we have created is a brand which is unparalleled. So globally, there is no other membership club which is like Soho House in terms of what it offers, not just the facilities, but more importantly, the community of members that we have. Members are able to come into our physical spaces and enjoy, our hotel spaces, our restaurants. We have, events, cinemas, spas, and many other things that we offer to our members, including longevity and wellness, which is kind of something that we are investing in now. Members also get access to the app, and therefore we understand their behavior on the digital side of things as well as on physical. And that collectively embodies what Soho House is.
Okay. Now let's go back to the beginning. When you arrived, the initial state, there was quite, like you said, quite some inefficiencies, and maybe the business was not going how it needed to be. There was manual corrections, customer feedback on digital was really trailing benchmarks. So, what really sparked this massive transformation and convinced the business that it was time for a change?
So when I joined Soho House 6 years ago, the company had quite a few leaders who were leading digital tech, and there was no data at the time, and it wasn't that successful. So the investments that Soho House had made weren't what did not bring the ROI that was expected. And therefore, when I spoke to the current CEO who hired me, as well as the founder, they had clear ambitions of having a member experience which was at par with our physical spaces. And they needed someone grown up to help them create that strategy, a roadmap, and build a team to do that. So a few things that I did was, first of all, was to earn a seat at the table. So in terms of gaining credibility, not just for myself but also for my team, and the first focus only was delivery, making sure that things that were derailed were delivered on time. In parallel, I looked at what the business growth was, what some of the challenges that we had, what some opportunities we had, and created strategies across technology within the houses, across digital, i.e. our app and the website, and started to create a small team that started doing data work. And that collectively was the genesis of what Soho Digital, my department, which encompasses all the things that you had previously articulated, that comes together to create innovative products that otherwise people in either membership, lifestyle, luxury, or hospitality haven't thought about before.
Okay, so you started by building a roadmap. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What were the main steps in making the big plan?
I mean, the way I've done the roadmap is I revise the roadmap every year, and it's based on the next 3 years. And each year, when we do the roadmap, there are two things that I always think about. One is kind of more strategic in terms of big projects that are useful for the company, not just within that year, but also for the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years sometimes. And then there is almost like something which is a bit more tactical, which is needed by, our houses, our operations, or, other functions that support it, that are just needed to be done. So kind of almost like a dual speed roadmap. And this is across everything that my team does, which is, again, cybersecurity and data privacy. It's about IT infrastructure. It's about member-facing digital work. It's about data, especially understanding our members in such a way that our operators and other support staff can use that information to serve our members even better.
Okay. You have the infrastructure, the security, and all the fundamentals that have to be in order, of course. But then I want to focus a little bit more on the data. So tell us a little bit your data strategy, where you started from, and how that evolved over the last couple of years.
I think one thing which is important to understand is that our business is different than any other typical business like a hotel or a retailer. The first thing is that our members, i.e. our customers, trust us a lot. So in normal businesses, when you give your data to another business, a retailer, an obvious question is, what are you going to do with my data? A lot of our members are saying, why aren't you using my data? Because this is a membership club, and they've been coming here for sometimes 10, 15, 20 years. And they've told us their preferences, and therefore they want their experience to be personalized. They want to be recognized for the right reasons. So the trust that our members have with us on the brand, both in the physical space and in the digital space, is really high. So that really helps us and encourages us to do what we do. The second is data infrastructure. I kind of built a data lake in secrecy about 6 years ago, when not many people within the organization understood what a data lake is. And from that, I started to first use that within digital, then beyond that for our businesses like bedrooms, spa, day-to-day F&B operations, so on and so forth. So much so that we've been able to completely change the culture of the organization and use data for every big decision or meeting that we have. And the third is really using data and any products around machine learning and AI to truly change the way our members experience us. And if you think about how we've grown, when I joined, we had 25 houses. in the first 25 years of Soho House. We now have about 48. So we've doubled our size in the last 5 years. Not just physical footprint, but also new businesses and many other things that we do and offer to our members. And all of these things collectively mean that we can use and have data to support member experience in a very different way. The other thing is that we are a lifestyle business. So our members, watch movies with us. They consume our content. They go to spa with us. They buy furniture from us. They kind of interact with us both on the digital side as well as on the physical side. There is wellness, there is travel and rooms, etc. So if you think about a typical hotel where you actually just go in for a few nights and come back, or a retailer where you buy clothes, etc. They know a few things about you, but it's not holistic enough. So the breadth of interactions that we have with our members is unparalleled. And the other one is that our members use our clubs and our digital spaces a lot. So from a breadth perspective and the depth perspective, we collect a lot of relevant information about our members that we can then use. So it changes the relationship that we have with our members and allows us to do things that most other retailers or other businesses aren't able to do. So data therefore becomes really important to us, both from a member experience perspective, but when we feed this back to, let's say, an event manager or an F&B manager, it really helps them create things that are relevant for our members and relevant for our business.
Okay, super. So member data, knowing your members inside out, what the preferences are, what they have, and what experience that they had before, what they prefer. That's really the core of the business, and so data and your data lake is of immense value for that, right?
100%. And this is both what our members tell us and what we infer of that. I mean, a simple, analogy that most people will understand is Netflix and Spotify. 70% of what's watched on Netflix is a recommendation. 80% of what's listened on Spotify is a recommendation. And that's because both of these platforms really know us based on what we've told them and also other people like us. And we've used the same, concept of personalization on the back of zero-party data and lookalike models to create recommendation systems and personalization that our members really like. At the end of the day, if you provide relevant things to your customer, and relevance is a keyword for me, then there is greater engagement, which leads to more bookings, more footfall, and obviously revenue. And from a member's perspective, they get a much better service at their membership club.
Yeah, so I can imagine you're also responsible for the app, for the member, the interface with the members. Can you talk us a little bit about that, about the evolution that has gone through over the last couple of years?
Yes. So the app that we have is probably one of the best hospitality lifestyle luxury apps around the world. Based on the feedback that our members give us, both publicly and otherwise. The app started with something very basic in terms of logging into our houses, checking into the spaces. But then gradually over the last 5 years, it has become a very solid booking engine. It has 10 types of bookings, to book a spa, F&B, rooms, wellness, anything that you can actually do at Soho House. It allows members to look at what they've ordered and pay without waiting for the waiter to pay their bill. So it's very efficient that way. It has their loyalty credits. It has enough information to browse our houses, explore what they are not aware of. It's a messaging tool. Members can find other members and connect with them on the app. It allows them to see who else is in the house whilst they're there, etc. So it's a very holistic app. It provides a lot of features and useful things to our members, and it is used a lot. Last week, more than 100,000 members used the app, which is 50% of total membership. And last month, 150,000 members used the app. And the app is typically used 3 times a week, which is more than members coming into the house.
Wow, very interesting. Now, so you collect a lot of data, and that allows you to improve the member experience and makes them feel at home, I can imagine, right? So on top of this data, you have been implementing quite a number of use cases with AI. So let's go from the data to the AI part. How did you start with this? How did you take your first steps in implementing AI on top of that data? And what was the first lessons that you learned?
So one of the positives that we had was that our data infrastructure and the quality of data, especially on the member side, was really high. So we were encouraged by that, and we started experimenting with AI in such a way that one, it didn't cross any boundaries. It was low stakes, and these were things that our members wanted. So we often do member surveys, typically on an annual basis, but in between that, we also have focus groups to understand what our members' perception of usage of AI is. And more often than not, our members are very open to it because they see the clear value exchange, as long as we do this in a respectful manner. So we are very conscious of that because of who we are and what we stand for. And this is over and above basic hygiene like the EU AI Act or GDPR. So we know the boundaries in which we are operating, and we know what our members have asked. So this is a good starting point for us. For example, we first introduced recommendation systems, and we used it for two things on the app. One was to recommend relevant events to members, and the second was to recommend relevant or kind of matching members to other members. And events is a good use case because we do undertake thousands of events every year. An event could mean something around a book launch, or it could also be a music or DJ, or it could be anything in between. Now, the events that suit you or are of interest to you may not be the same to me. So going back to that Netflix model, so that recommendation engine really helped us improve engagement of our members. When we launched, within the first 1 month, engagement and bookings were up by 6%. And then since then, we've collected a lot more interest from our members, and we've fine-tuned the model, and we've seen the benefits of that. Similarly, members, we've always had our members meet other members within the club. As we go more global, meeting others digitally complements the way our members meet each other. And again, recommendations to meet other members really help. On the other hand, we've used AI a lot in the operational space. So back of the house, where be it to match invoices to purchase orders, looking at a lot of tactical emails that can easily be and quickly responded to or drafted by GPT-based AI. There are other things that we've done which kind of have helped our operations, our membership team, our marketing team to be a lot more efficient in what they do.
Okay, now you shared with us that you had no less or more than 60 use cases for AI. So what's the current AI plan? What's the AI strategy, let's say, that you're working with?
Yeah. So funnily, we wrote the AI strategy only a couple of months ago, and that was 18 months after we started the AI program, because I'm a firm believer on delivering things first rather than writing documents. Because often what happens is that when you write a big strategy before you've actually tested the waters, it may or may not be the right thing for the business, and sometimes there is more hype than what reality is. And to me, anything, be it AI or in general digital or tech, you got to do things which are relevant for the business, and they're practical from a cost perspective, and they reap clear ROI on the back of great customer experience. So once we've been on the advanced analytics, automation, and AI journey for so long, when we did the AI strategy, it was the first time that we did it across the whole C-suite. So understanding priorities from the rest of the C-suite, because the area is a lot more mature now. There is much greater understanding of, let's say, generative AI, definitely predictive, to some extent agentic, across our company. And therefore, having the conversation now really helped. So as a result of that, we now have 60 use cases, of which 15 are high priority that we are progressing.
Okay, super. Now let's talk a little bit about the achievements. I mean, we talk about increasing recurring revenue, reducing member attrition, retaining revenue because of that. Can you share some numbers on that?
Sure. So again, this goes back to our scale. When we were smaller, we were just in the UK. It was much easier to manage the business. And as we've grown, not just in volume but also in geographic footprint. Asia is a big expansion for us. We are in all major cities in Europe. US is big for us, and UK obviously has always been big. To do things consistently at scale requires data and AI. So, for example, um, we have a very we typically have a very long tenure of our members. We've got loads of members who've been around for more than 20 years, which is unheard of in any business like ours, like a recurring subscription business. But when members resign, often they've kind of resigned, and we kind of know about it on the day that they're resigning, or they've decided not to renew, which is typically too late. Sometimes members resign because their lifestyle has changed, they are moving cities, etc. But sometimes it could be lack of engagement. And as you can imagine, lack of engagement would mean people would question whether their recurring annual bill is worth their money or not. And therefore, understanding who will resign and why is really important. Because that really helps our membership teams to intervene early on, and find out if there is anything that we can do to further improve the experience that our members have. And this reason could be different for different people, because again, we are very global. We offer lots of things, and people use us for different things, not just to come in and have a meal at the restaurant, but for other things like wellness, events, cinema, etc. So understanding why someone is disengaged and what can be done to win them back is really important. So we've been using that over the last 6 months, and that's been really useful and successful. We've also looked at um, um, the profile of our members to see what is it that we can do. Again, going back to recommendation, what is it that our members really value, and based on that, how can we create new products that are relevant for our business. For example, longevity and wellness is a big area where a lot of members are interested in, based on the interest that they provided, the data that we've seen in terms of demand and engagement, and therefore that's an area that we have decided to invest in strategically over the next 24 months. So these are examples where the use of AI and data has truly helped us understand where to invest, how to invest, and be very targeted in those investments.
So, Raj, was there, using your strategy, prove value quickly in a visible way, focus on things that have a clear, measurable, fast ROI? Was there one of the projects that had a surprising result that even you didn't expect?
Yes, so you're right. So one of the key things that I always look at when starting a new AI project is, does it have a tangible outcome? Because otherwise what happens is that there is a lot of projects in pilot and POC stages which never see the light of production, which becomes hard because everything comes at a cost. So to prioritize cost in such a way that really impacts business outcomes, ROI becomes one of the key factors that we use to determine what should go ahead versus not. One of the ideas that came from the director of procurement at Soho House was to use ChatGPT based insights and analysis for sourcing some of the food products that we have. So, for example, in the US, typical things that we buy are avocados, tomatoes, and onions, and the price of that fluctuates every month. And typically, what happens is that suppliers provide us with a new price, which we often accept, or sometimes negotiate, but we do not have enough intelligence or reports to push back on or have a more intelligent conversation to drive that negotiation. And based on a prompt that we refined over a couple of weeks, we were able to generate monthly reports for each of these products that helped our category managers to negotiate a price significantly down. So with relatively low effort, this is something which is delivering a substantial benefit to us, and something that I had never thought about could be done, because often, most of these projects do take a long time to set up, then fine tune before you can see the value. But this one truly surprised me in terms of how quickly we could do something, and with the impact that it currently has. And it is now being used across both the UK and the US.
Yes, you also shared with us that email automation and email response has been an important project. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, so we pride ourselves on great customer service, both in the houses, on the app, and in our contact center. We receive about 100, or we receive about a million requests from our members each year. Many of them are emails that are tactical or simple to respond to. So over the last 18 months, we've set up ChatGPT based responses, which essentially draft a response to our member emails, especially for simple tactical or repeatable emails, which a human checks before they send. That has helped us improve efficiency of that team by about 30%.
Okay, super. Now let's talk a little bit about the different shareholders. If you do a big project like this, you thought that you told us that leadership initially were thinking about digital as being incompatible with the relational ethos that is in the company, and I mean you had to convince the founders and the C-suite in the company and that typically were more taking decisions on intuition, and you had to convince them to become a champion in being data driven and AI powered. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey and that conviction that you had to do with the with founder and C-suite?
Yeah, initially it was very challenging. I mean, our founder is a creative genius. I mean, he created the brand that no one else could. But at the same time, data and tech isn't his forte. So I had to work with him over a few years to work together and explain to him what it means and the benefit of both digital and data. And that digital isn't really replacing any of the interactions of or what we are known for. It's essentially complementing it. And through data, which we have proven multiple times now, is it really helps us target how we can improve our product, both on the digital side as well as on the physical side. And that truly, over the years, helped convince the founder in terms of the usefulness of data. And that really changed the game initially. The current CEO is data savvy. He comes from a retail background, and him and I have collectively partnered to change the complete culture of the company, from being a lot more intuition led to a lot more data led now. So we continue to listen to our members in the houses. There's lots of people who do that, and that information is invaluable. But we have millions of transactions in the background and pattern recognition that then complements that information, that understanding, and helps us make decisions and create products that are very innovative in a way that no one has done in the past.
Yeah. I can imagine the best way to convince founders, owners of a company is to show top line and bottom line results, right?
Absolutely, and absolutely, and also what our customers are saying about us. So we do surveys, we do real time feedback, and our members are telling us that there are aspects of the membership which have become much better than before, and a lot of these are products that were based on clear data insights that we collected and provided to the wider business.
Okay, now you had initial financial wins because of all the programs that you put in place, but were there also new long-term capabilities that you have created by running these programs?
Yes. So there are a few things which are fundamental to how things have progressed in my space at Soho House. I say the first is team, because a tenure of the team also means that they understand the full business context. Often what happens is that tech leaders or tech team can be a bit isolated from what's happening within the wider business, be it commercial growth, challenges, or opportunities. And because of that, either their work is not directly relevant or some money is being wasted in terms of investment. But in the case of my team, the tenure of my senior leadership team is as long as mine, and therefore they understand the full context of the business, and we are very much plugged into what's happening in the mainstream business rather than a team being on the side. So that's number one. Second is infrastructure. Not just data, but also wider digital and technology infrastructure is modern. Everything talks to each other. And we've been able to get to a position where we can spin up new products or insights fairly quickly, with the huge amounts of relevance as well as accuracy, which many businesses aren't able to, which have a huge legacy or are too big. So that really helps us, having modern, good architecture. And the third is culture. And the culture is not just within my team, but also the culture that my team has, or the collaboration it has with the wider business. And therefore, coming back to the first point around, how much do they understand and what are they doing? Is it relevant for the business? All of these three things really helps us be more strategic, and these foundational capabilities, set us apart compared to another team.
Now, I can imagine we started the discussion talking about the 300 legacy systems that were there. And so that means a big technological debt that is out there. How did you manage that? How did you get rid? How did you modernize these systems? And where are you on that road today?
Yeah, so I'd say that if I was to kind of segment the overall technology estate at Soho House into digital, data, and back of the house enterprise systems. Digital, I'd say, is very modern. Data, I'd say, is a step even further. But enterprise systems, we are actually behind. Especially around finance and HR. That is what our current focus is, to make sure that the back end or the engine of the business is as good as the customer facing side of the business. So that's been a significant investment from the board over the last 12 months or so, and we've got another 24 months to go.
Okay, another challenge that the company typically has when it implements a AI program is the resistance to change from people. Because they've been doing it in this way for decades already, and now you're going to tell them that we can do it better with a chatbot or something. So how do you overcome that?
And that is just human nature, to be honest. Nothing different at Soho House, but there are a few things that make change more conducive at Soho House versus other businesses. First is that the DNA of our business is all about being dynamic and fast-paced. That has been the case since day one, thanks to the original culture that the founder built, and then all the changes that we've brought about in terms of being from private to public, now back to private. Then COVID hit us, which was a big change for us. Then kind of new leadership, which is kind of more data savvy, etc. So all of that actually helps us do what we are doing, and we're kind of more. We welcome change more on a relative scale. That's number one. But the other thing, you're right, that there is a lot of excitement when people talk about AI projects, but as they progress into implementation, anxiety also sets in, because people are truly and genuinely concerned about their own role in terms of the change of roles, upskilling, and sometimes losing the job. That can also be the case. So, which is no different to us versus any other company, but that is something that you got to manage through the journey. And more often than not, when we create AI products which improve productivity, most teams are really happy about it, because finance teams, for example, have been running their business on spreadsheets, and those teams are really happy because they can do things much quicker now. Similar with marketing, who can now do hyper segmentation based on some of the data lake information that we have, so on and so forth. So more often than not, when it is about productivity, people really love doing that. When it's about upskilling, more people are wanting to kind of upskill themselves and learn something new and exciting. But yes, there will always be people who are kind of less I guess open to change, and some of these things can be daunting for them, and we try our best to take them on the journey. So it's kind of a mixed bag, as you can imagine, but I think by and large we are quite open to change, including through AI.
And how is the internal within IT and digital teams, the internal adoption of AI? I mean, I can imagine that you do quite a lot of custom development still with the apps and so on. Are you using AI more and more for development yourself?
Yeah, we're starting to, and we're seeing some productivity as well. But across tools, what I'm seeing more of is all the third-party tools that we use. Everyone's starting to incorporate AI within that, both on the customer-facing side as well as on the technology side. That is really helping us. And when we partner with third-party products, often what happens is that we work alongside them rather than give the work to them, and that helps them understand what's important from a business perspective, and helps our digital teams understand what cutting edge technology is out there today.
Okay. One quick question on security, cybersecurity. I mean, you are doing a transformation there as well. You're on track to achieve ISO 27001 certification. What's the impact of that? I mean, if you build the company to be more resilient and have more trust, does that enable innovation? And can you give an example of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fundamentally speaking, the more data you have, the more exposed you are. And in today's world, be it public or private, a brand that is well known versus not, no one's immune to cyber attacks. Even the last 3 months in the UK, we've seen so many of those on big brands and have had huge disruption on businesses. So we don't operate on the concept that if we kind of operate on when type of a situation, because we know that these things just happen. So we feel comfortable in where we are. But having said that, this is a very fast evolving space where the nature of attacks and the severity of those attacks is only increasing every quarter. So we got to be always careful, and it goes back to trust that our members have with the brand, and probably higher than most other brands. So that's a big aspect to what we do. Now, in terms of the certification and more importantly data privacy, we use these tools as guardrails rather than we don't think of them as blockers. More often than not, we kind of overachieve because, as I said, GDPR and the EU AI Act and even NIST and ISO 27001, these are hygiene factors for us. What we actually do is over and above to make sure that we're always on brand, we're never crossing boundaries, and we are creating AI products or data products that are only relevant to our member experience. And as I said previously, we often speak to our members to understand what is their appetite to any of these things. And none of the work that we do within Soho House, especially in the tech space, is for the sake of, because it's fancy and therefore let's build a model. It's always around, is it relevant? And do our members want it? How would they feel about it? And is it commercially viable for the business?
Okay. Now you've achieved quite a lot in these 6 years at Soho House, implemented a new digital strategy, data strategy, now AI, and at the same time managing your applications, cybersecurity, and so on. But I'm sure we all make our mistakes. If you look back on this last year, could you share with us maybe one of your most beautiful mistakes that you made in running digital here and what you learned from it?
I'd say that in my initial years, because of the culture within the company or the credibility or the history of my team, it was hard to be very transparent in terms of what we were doing. And some of the work that we did wasn't or was a bit opaque to some of the other stakeholders within the business. And that sometimes created misunderstanding in terms of what was being done and why. But whilst we were kind of progressing at pace, by being less consultative. One of the drawbacks of that was less collaboration. But when we changed that dynamic, we saw that whilst it slowed us down initially a bit, but overall in terms of adoption, we were kind of twice as effective. So I'd say that the collaboration piece, especially when you're doing things which are, whilst technical, data or AI oriented, which do impact member experience big time, it is really important to partner with the wider business in the most effective way.
Let's talk a bit about your style of leadership and how you manage your teams and so on. And maybe a good way to ask this: if I would come and to your offices and put myself next to the coffee machine and ask and talk to some people that work with you, around you, what is it that they will say about you and about the way that you lead the business there?
I actually, funnily, asked this question of my leads about a few months ago, and a consistent theme that came out was that I'm calm and confident, even under pressure. But I'd say that the big thing that I've learned over so many years, now being a global CTO for 10 years and then a management consultant for a decade before that, is that I'm able to flex my style based on the situation. And when I need to, I'll be a driver, depending on what the situation is, which is, I'd say, no more than 20 to 25% of my time. But for the rest of the time, I'm quite empathetic, and I trust my leadership team a lot to deliver the goods. And that kind of is a good balance. I feel that, and especially with my direct reports, and therefore, hopefully beyond that as well, it helps give people a level of independence and autonomy. At the same time, they know that someone's got their back. And that works well. But at the same time, as I said, there are times in the business where things are just needed yesterday at half the price, and you got to just step up and get things done very quickly.
In your work, Raj, and maybe in your life as well, what is it that really gives you energy, that makes that on the Monday morning you go you stand up and say, "Oh, this is going to be an interesting week." What needs to happen for you to be really content in the work?
My biggest thing is the impact that me and my team can bring about to the business, and our focus is incremental revenue and on margin. I mean, the cost reduction is a given. I mean, that's something that we kind of achieved, early on, and that's pretty much on autopilot. But it's creating differentiated products. It's about coming up with completely new ideas that people haven't thought about previously. It's about combining member behavior with technology to come up with those kind of things that are very easy to then use by our staff within the houses. It's those things that are relevant to our business. Hopefully are not high effort, but definitely are high impact. That is the kind of thing I kind of wake up to every morning, and that is what excites me.
Super. And you've been in technology, what is it, over 20 years, and a CTO role over 10 years. If you would have taken a different career path, not in technology and digital, where do you think you would have ended up nowadays?
Well, I think the obvious route would have been to continue in strategy consulting, as I was doing pre-CTO. But in high school, I wanted to be a doctor. So who knows, I could have become one. But otherwise, I've often joked that, and I have a passion in cooking and hosting, that I could have a food truck in Spitalfield markets in Shoreditch, selling Indian food.
Well, you have options. That's something, right? So, in the business today, Raj, what do you see as the next big challenge, the next big opportunity that you're going to be working on for the coming years?
I mean, the use of data to drive experience and to drive margins and incremental revenue, that is a huge opportunity. And AI is part of that. AI products will bring more productivity. They will bring completely new ideas. No doubt about that. I mean, we've used predictive AI a lot over the last 18 months. We now have a lot of generative AI cases, and we're starting to scratch the surface of agentic as well. So collectively, I think this will truly be a game changer, not just for our business, but I'd say every business around the world. But the whole fact around having relevant, accessible, real-time data available to make decisions, targeted decisions quickly, will be a game changer for us.
Okay. Now you shared with me that you also use AI on a personal level. Can you disclose a little bit how do you use chatbots for yourself?
So I use this tool called Perplexity, which is kind of ChatGPT meets Google, because it not just provides answers but actually does a bit of research as well. And I use different models within that. I have about 12 threads within Perplexity, which I use for from tax advice to health advice to parenting to travel. Last week, I used Perplexity to understand and help answer my 11-year-old's Spanish homework. And I've got zero idea about Spanish, but I was able to help him complete the homework. So that's a win.
Yeah, it's amazing how these tools are. I mean, they're the best teachers and the best coaches around. So it's really, really impressive.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So to wrap up this interview, Raj, and thank you so much for your time. I wanted to know if Tomorrow, another technology leader was about to start a similar data and AI program, and that you have been working on over the last couple of years. What's the advice that you would give these people?
My number one advice would be to go deep within the business, understand where the business is going, understand what the opportunity is, because starting data or AI is a very broad space, and what data would you collect, how would you analyze, what models would you build, who would use them, and what is the ROI. All of that is purely predicated on where the business is going, and unless you understand that, you may end up doing something which is completely irrelevant and not aligned to the business strategy. So, business growth strategy, challenges, opportunities, that to me is such an important thing, which often is overlooked by tech leaders because either they don't have the background in it and therefore not comfortable with having those conversations, or otherwise they're not included in those conversations. So I'd say that is my number one thing. The second I would say is build credibility on the back of some tangible results. Otherwise what happens is that all the hype that we have around AI, that will fizzle out, but what will not fizzle out is if you've delivered results.
Okay, and on that note, Raj, thank you so much for your time today. It was really a pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you in London very soon.
Thank you, and likewise for your time as well, Henrik.